What if the secret to success wasn't about being the smartest or the richest, but about how well you connect with people? What if changing the way you talk, listen, and treat others could completely change your life? This is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's not just a book. It's a guide to becoming someone others trust, like, and want to follow. Welcome to Prose Pursuit. If this is your first time here, our channel takes powerful books and turns them into stories you can actually use. Whether you're driving, working, or just relaxing, we bring you the lessons that change lives. In this video, we're going to walk through every part of this classic book. You'll hear real stories, simple ideas, and tips you can use today. No boring lectures, just useful advice told in a way that makes sense. This book has helped millions. It's helped leaders, parents, teachers, business owners, and everyday people become better at one thing that matters most: people. So if you've ever wanted to be better at making friends, dealing with difficult individuals, or becoming someone others want to be around, this is your starting point. Let's dive in. Chapter 1. If you want honey, don't kick the beehive. Let's start with something really basic, but powerful. People don't like being criticized. In fact, when you blame or complain about someone, they usually don't change. They just get defensive. Dale Carnegie starts the book with this idea. If you want people to listen, if you want to influence them, don't attack them. Don't criticize or judge. Think about this. Have you ever been told, "You're doing it wrong," or "You're being lazy"? It doesn't feel good. You probably wanted to argue, not improve. That's how most people react too. Carnegie shares a true story about a criminal named Two Gun Crowley. This guy was in a shootout with police. But even when he was caught, he said, "I'm a good guy." He didn't see himself as bad. Even the worst people don't think they're wrong. So, what's the lesson? If you want to win someone over, don't start by pointing out their flaws. Instead, try to understand them. Be gentle. Be kind. Let's use a real-life example. Imagine a coworker keeps messing up a team project. You could say, "You always do this. You're slowing us down." But that just creates tension. Instead, you might say, "Hey, I noticed this part didn't go as planned. Is there anything I can help you with?" That opens the door for teamwork instead of blame. Even in families, this works. Parents who yell all the time often see their kids tune out. But parents who speak with calm and explain things often get better results. The point is not to ignore mistakes. It's to lead with kindness, not criticism. In your daily life, this chapter can help you at work, at home, and even with strangers. If you replace criticism with curiosity and kindness, people will listen, and they'll respect you more. So remember this: if you want honey, don't kick the beehive. Be gentle with people, and they'll be more willing to grow. Chapter 2. The Big Secret of Dealing with People. Here's a truth that almost no one talks about. Everyone, everywhere, wants to feel important. It doesn't matter if they're rich or poor, young or old, CEO or janitor. People want to feel like they matter. That's the big secret Dale Carnegie shares in this chapter. If you want to connect with someone, make them feel important. Genuinely important, not in a fake, over-the-top way. Just show real appreciation. Let's say your coworker helped clean up after a long meeting. A simple, "Hey, I noticed you stayed behind to clean up. That really helped. Thank you," can make their entire day. It costs nothing, but it means everything. This works everywhere. In families, if you tell your partner, "I really appreciate how hard you work," that can build love. With kids saying, "I'm proud of how kind you were today," gives them confidence. Even with strangers, like a cashier or a delivery driver, a little appreciation can turn a dull day into a good one. Carnegie warns us not to flatter people. Flattery is fake, and people can sense it. But appreciation is honest. You see something good, and you say it. That's it. Here's a real-life example. There's a story of Charles Schwab, a steel company executive. He was known for getting the best out of his workers. His secret? He praised more than he criticized. When someone did something well, he'd notice it and say so. That made people want to do even better. Think about how you feel when someone notices your effort. It lights you up, right? That's how others feel too. So in your everyday life, try this. Catch people doing something right. And say something. Whether it's a smile, a thank you, or a small compliment, it builds goodwill. It makes people feel seen. And when people feel seen, they like being around you. They trust you. They want to work with you. That's how you win friends. That's how you influence people. Chapter 3. He who can do this has the whole world with him. He who cannot walks a lonely way. That chapter title sounds dramatic, right? But the lesson is surprisingly simple. Want people to like you instantly? Learn to listen. Not just nod your head while waiting to talk listening. I mean real, focused, interested listening. Dale Carnegie says this: if you want to be liked, let others talk about themselves. Think about it. What's most people's favorite topic? Themselves. Their stories, their dreams, their problems. And when someone actually listens, they feel respected, valued, understood. Carnegie tells a story about meeting a botanist at a party. He asked a man about plants and just listened. That man talked for over an hour. At the end, he told Carnegie, "You're such a great conversationalist." But Carnegie barely said anything. He just let the man talk. That's the power of being a good listener. Let's apply this in real life. You're at work. Instead of trying to impress your boss, ask about their career. Let them share their story. You're at a family gathering. Ask your cousin about their new job. Listen closely. Don't interrupt. Even in a fight with a friend, instead of jumping in to defend yourself, let them talk. Listen all the way through. Then respond. This doesn't mean you never speak. But if you lead with curiosity and interest in the other person, you build trust. And trust makes people want to be around you. Here's a fun trick. Next time you're in a conversation, ask one open question, then say nothing. Let the other person fill the space. Most of the time, they will. And when they do, they'll walk away thinking you're a kind, thoughtful, even wise person. All because you listened. So the lesson: if you want connection, don't try to be interesting. Be interested. Chapter 4. A simple way to make a good first impression. Imagine you walk into a room and someone looks at you and smiles warmly. You instantly feel welcome, right? That's the secret in this chapter. Smile. That's it. Just smile. Dale Carnegie says a smile is one of the most powerful tools you have. It costs nothing, but it can change someone's entire day. A real smile tells people, "I like you. I'm glad you're here. You matter." Carnegie shares the story of a customer who walked into a bank where the employees were cold and unfriendly. Then one new teller came along who smiled at everyone. Suddenly, people were choosing his line, even if it was longer. Why? Because a smile made them feel good. It's not just about looking friendly. It is about being friendly. Think of it like this. Your face is like a welcome sign. And if your sign says warmth and kindness, people will come in. But if it says cold and serious, they'll stay away. And yes, I know, some days are hard. You don't feel like smiling. But here's a trick. Try smiling anyway. Just the act of smiling can boost your mood. It tells your brain things are okay. Here's how you can use this today. Walking into school or work. Smile at the first person you see. Meeting someone new? Smile before you say hello. Answering a phone call. Smile before you speak. Yes, people can hear a smile in your voice. This simple habit can change your relationships. People will see you as more approachable, more trustworthy, and more likable. So the big idea here, don't underestimate the power of a smile. It's small, but it works wonders. Chapter 5. A name is the sweetest sound. Have you ever been in a crowd and someone says your name? Instantly, you turn around. That's the power of a name. Dale Carnegie believed this. A person's name is, to that person, the sweetest and most important sound in any language. It's not just a label. It's tied to who we are. When someone remembers your name, it makes you feel seen. Important, respected. Carnegie tells the story of a man who could meet hundreds of people and still remember their names. He became incredibly popular and well-liked. Why? Because he made people feel special, and all he did was use their names. Let's break it down into something you can use right now. At school or work, try to remember people's names and say them when you greet them. Hi, Sarah. Morning, Jake. At a restaurant? Look at the name tag and thank your server by name. Thanks, Maria. That was awesome. Meeting someone new? Repeat their name once or twice during the conversation. It helps you remember and makes them feel valued. You don't need to be super smooth. You just need to be sincere. Here's a real-life example. Say you go to a coffee shop regularly. The barista always sees dozens of people, but one day you say, "Thanks, Josh." He smiles. Next time you come in, he remembers you. Maybe he even starts your order before you ask. Small moment, big impact. So what's the lesson? Names matter. Use them. Remember them. Treat them with care. Because when you remember someone's name, you're telling them, "You matter to me." Chapter 6. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. Imagine this. You're talking to someone and they just listen. They don't interrupt. They don't try to one-up your story. They're just there, paying full attention. How do you feel? Heard. Understood. Important. That's what this chapter is about. Dale Carnegie says that if you want to be interesting, you don't need to talk a lot. You just need to listen. He shares a story of a man who went to a dinner party, barely said anything, and just asked a few questions here and there. By the end of the night, the person he spoke with told the host that guy was fascinating. Even though he barely talked, people loved him because he let them talk. Here's the takeaway. People love to talk about themselves. Let them. Try it in real life. Meeting someone new. Ask them what they're passionate about. On a date, ask follow-up questions and really listen. In a work meeting, let others explain their thoughts fully before jumping in, and don't fake it. People can tell if you're just nodding while waiting for your turn to talk. Be genuinely curious. Think about it like this. Most people walk around with a mental sign that says, "Please make me feel important." Listening does exactly that. Here's an everyday example. Say your coworker is into hiking. Instead of nodding and moving on, ask, "Where's your favorite trail?" and let them go on about it. Watch their face light up. That's how you connect. So the lesson is simple. Talk less. Listen more. Chapter 7. Talk in terms of the other person's interests. Let's say you meet someone who's into chess. You know nothing about chess, but you ask, "What got you into it?" Suddenly, they light up. They start talking about strategies, tournaments, how it helps them focus. Boom, you've just made a connection. That's the point of this chapter. If you want to win friends, talk about what they care about, not what you care about. Dale Carnegie tells the story of a man who wanted to get an appointment with a busy executive. Everyone else was being ignored, but this guy knew the executive loved fishing. So instead of pitching his idea right away, he started the conversation talking about trout fishing. They connected instantly, and he got the meeting. Here's the trick. People are naturally interested in what they care about, not what you care about. Want someone to listen to you? First, talk about what they like. Here are a few examples. If you're at a children's party and meet a parent, ask about their kids. If your coworker loves basketball, bring up the latest game. If someone's into photography, ask what camera they use. You don't have to be fake. Just be curious. Show you care. This works in everyday life too. Trying to sell something? Don't talk about features. Talk about how it solves their problem. Going for a job interview? Don't list everything you've done. Talk about how you'll help them succeed. People remember how you make them feel. And when you talk about their interests, they feel seen. So the lesson, shift the spotlight. Let them shine. Chapter 8. Make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. Imagine you're at a coffee shop and the barista looks stressed. Instead of just grabbing your drink and walking away, you smile and say, "Thanks for the hustle. I can tell you're working hard today." That tiny moment, it can make someone's whole day. That's what this chapter is all about. Making people feel important, but genuinely. Dale Carnegie says one of the deepest human desires is to feel valued. Not for what we own, not for what we look like, but for who we are. And here's the truth. Everyone you meet is craving a little appreciation. This doesn't mean flattery. It doesn't mean saying something just to get what you want. People can smell fake praise from a mile away. What it does mean is paying attention, noticing what makes someone unique, and then letting them know it. Here are a few examples. Telling a coworker, "You're always so organized. It really helps the team." Thanking your delivery driver with, "I appreciate you doing this rain or shine." Telling your sibling, "You give great advice. I don't say it enough." These aren't grand gestures, but they're real. And real appreciation builds real connection. This works at work, at home, and everywhere in between. When people feel seen, they open up, they trust more, they give more. So here's your challenge. Today, find someone, anyone, and make them feel important. Notice them. Appreciate them. Genuinely. Because in a world where everyone wants attention, the one who gives it with sincerity, that's the person people remember. Chapter 9. You can't win an argument. Have you ever had an argument where even if you won, it still felt bad? Maybe you proved your point, but the other person walked away upset or defensive. That's the problem with arguments. Nobody really wins. Dale Carnegie says it best. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. Why? Because when you argue with someone, even if you're right, you make them feel wrong. And people don't like to feel wrong. They dig in. They defend themselves. And even if you win, you might lose their respect, their trust, or the relationship. Imagine this. You tell your friend they're wrong about something. You explain your side, give facts, and prove your point. In the end, they might nod, but inside they feel embarrassed or angry. That moment can damage your connection. So, what do you do instead? You stay calm. You listen. You look for common ground. Say things like, "I see where you're coming from," or "That's an interesting point. Here's how I see it." And we might not agree, but I appreciate your view. These phrases lower tension. They open the door to conversation, not conflict. This approach works in every area of life, with coworkers, friends, family, even strangers online. People don't want to be argued into agreement. They want to feel respected and heard. So, the next time you feel an argument coming on, pause. Ask yourself, is winning this worth damaging the relationship? Most of the time, it's not. Because in the long run, it's better to be kind than to be right. And that mindset, it wins more people over than any argument ever could. Chapter 10. Show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say you're wrong. Think about a time someone said to you, "You're wrong." How did it make you feel? Probably not great. Even if they were right, the way they said it made you feel small, defensive, maybe even angry. That's what Dale Carnegie wants us to avoid in this chapter. The truth is, most people won't change their minds if they feel attacked. Telling someone they're wrong is like throwing a brick at their pride. It hurts and it builds a wall. So what's the better way? Instead of calling someone out directly, try softening your approach. Say things like, "I might be wrong, but here's how I see it." Or, "That's a good point. Have you ever thought about it this way?" And interesting. Can we explore that idea together? These little phrases show respect. They don't push people into a corner. They invite a real conversation instead of a battle. Carnegie gives an example of a man who disagreed with another person during a business meeting. Instead of saying, "That's incorrect," he said, "I used to think that way myself, but then I looked into it more and found something surprising." That sentence changed the whole tone. No offense, no ego clash, just curiosity. And you can apply this in real life every day. At work, in relationships, or even online, showing respect for someone's opinion doesn't mean you have to agree. It just means you care more about the relationship than about proving a point. Remember this, it's not about being right. It's about being heard and understood. That's how influence begins, not with facts, but with feelings. Chapter 11. If you're wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. Let's be honest, admitting we're wrong doesn't feel good. It bruises the ego, but you know what feels even worse? Being called out for a mistake we refuse to admit. Dale Carnegie tells us something that sounds simple, but is incredibly powerful. If you mess up, say so and say it fast. Don't wait. Don't sugarcoat. Just own it. There's a story in the book about a man who took his dog out without a leash, even though it was against the rules. A police officer stopped him and was ready to give him a ticket. But instead of arguing, the man immediately said, "You're absolutely right. I broke the rule and I deserve a fine." The officer was so surprised, he let him go with just a warning. Why did that work? Because when you admit your mistake first, you take the wind out of the other person's sails. There's no more reason to argue, no reason to get defensive. It turns potential conflict into cooperation. And it's not just about avoiding trouble. This approach earns respect. People trust those who take responsibility. In real life, it works wonders. At work, if you make an error on a report, say it. "Hey, I noticed I messed up the numbers. I'll fix it right away." In relationships, if you forget a birthday, don't make excuses. Just say, "I messed up. I'm really sorry. Let me make it up to you." We all make mistakes. But not everyone has the courage to admit them. The ones who do, they stand out. So next time you're wrong, don't hide it. Shine a light on it. People won't think less of you. They'll think more of you. Chapter 12, Principle 3 of Part 3. Begin in a friendly way. Imagine walking into a store. You're about to return a product that didn't work. You're upset, frustrated. The moment the clerk sees your face, she frowns back. Her tone is sharp. You instantly feel defensive, maybe even more irritated. The conversation quickly turns into a battle. Now imagine a different scene. You walk in, and the clerk greets you with a warm smile. She listens. She says she's sorry to hear you had a bad experience. Even before solving the issue, she makes you feel heard. Your anger starts to melt. You're more willing to cooperate. You might even leave the store feeling satisfied, even if the outcome wasn't perfect. That's the power of beginning in a friendly way. Carnegie reminds us that when we approach someone with warmth instead of harshness, we invite openness, not resistance. When we want to influence others or solve a disagreement, starting with kindness is like opening a door gently instead of kicking it down. He tells a story about a government official who needed to shut down a mill for pollution. Instead of storming in with threats and authority, he started by sincerely appreciating the owner's contributions to the community. He showed empathy, then explained the law. The owner, instead of arguing, agreed to cooperate immediately. This principle works in everyday life. Think about it. Have you ever tried convincing a friend, a coworker, or even a child to do something? If you start with criticism, their walls go up. But if you start with friendliness, the walls come down. It's not about manipulation. It's about respect. It's about seeing the other person as a human being first, not an obstacle in your way. So next time you're about to give feedback, resolve a problem, or persuade someone, pause, smile, use a warm tone. Start by being friendly. It might just change the entire outcome. Chapter 13, Principle 4 of Part 3. Get the other person saying yes, yes immediately. Picture this. You're at a car dealership. The salesman starts off by saying, "This car is exactly what you don't want. It's probably out of your budget. And you might not like the color." What would you say? Probably something like, "Well, no, that's not right at all." Now imagine a different approach. The salesman begins by saying, "You're looking for something reliable, fuel efficient, and easy to maintain, right? You nod. Yes. He continues, you also want something safe for your family and good for long drives. You nod again. Yes. Before you know it, you're in agreement. You're engaged, and you're more open to what comes next. That's exactly what Dale Carnegie talks about in this chapter. If you want to influence someone, get them saying yes right away. When people start off by agreeing with you, even on small points, they feel a sense of harmony. And once that feeling is established, they're much more likely to continue agreeing with you. It's like building momentum in a conversation. One yes leads to another, and another. This principle is especially useful in negotiations, sales, parenting, or even daily conversations with friends. If you start by pointing out differences, the other person puts up their guard. But if you start with shared values, goals, or facts, they relax. And once people relax, they listen. It's the difference between pulling someone by the hand and walking beside them. Carnegie shared how a life insurance agent would begin by asking questions that everyone would naturally agree with. You want the best for your family, right? You want peace of mind? You want to protect your loved ones even if something happens to you? All yeses. And from that point, the conversation felt like teamwork, not pressure. In your daily life, think about how you can begin conversations by focusing on shared truths. Maybe it's a coworker you disagree with. Instead of arguing, you can say, we both care about getting this project done right, don't we? That yes creates a connection, and from there, real progress can begin. So the next time you want someone to see things your way, don't rush in with confrontation. Start with agreement. Get that first yes, then another, and watch how the tone of the conversation shifts in your favor. Chapter 14, Principle 5 of Part 3. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. Have you ever been in a conversation where the other person just wouldn't stop talking about themselves? You listen, nod, smile, and wait for your turn, but it never comes. Annoying, right? Now, flip that. Imagine you're talking to someone who truly listens. They lean in, ask questions, and let you share your thoughts, ideas, and experiences. You walk away thinking, wow, that person was great to talk to, even if they barely said anything. That's the magic Dale Carnegie teaches in this chapter. If you want to influence people, let them talk. A lot. Not just to be polite, but because most people crave the chance to express themselves. Carnegie shares a story about a dinner party he once attended. He spent an evening listening to a botanist talk about plants. Carnegie hardly spoke at all. But afterward, the botanist told their host, Dale is one of the most interesting conversationalists I've ever met. The secret? Dale didn't do the talking. He just listened. When you let the other person speak, something amazing happens. They feel important, respected, valued, and as a result, they become more open to you, more willing to work with you, and more likely to trust you. It works in business, relationships, even parenting. Think about a time when someone gave you space to speak without interrupting or turning the spotlight back on themselves. Didn't it feel good? That's the feeling you want to create in others. Let's say you're working with a client who has a problem. Instead of rushing in with solutions, ask them to explain. Tell me what happened. What's been bothering you? What do you think we should do? Not only will you learn more, but they'll often talk themselves into the solution. Even when someone's angry, letting them vent can be more powerful than defending yourself. Just being heard is healing. So the next time you're in a conversation, resist the urge to jump in. Don't try to outshine or outtalk the other person. Instead, ask questions. Nod. Be curious. Let them talk. The more they talk, the more they'll like you, and the more influence you'll have. Simple, right? But powerful. Chapter 15, Principle 6 of Part 3. Let the other person feel that the idea is theirs. Have you ever noticed how much more excited you are about an idea when you believe it was yours? That's the insight behind this chapter. Dale Carnegie says, if you want someone to support a plan, let them think they came up with it. People are naturally more committed to ideas they feel ownership over. Let's put that into a real-world example. Imagine you're a manager and you want your team to try a new strategy. Instead of saying, "Here's what we're going to do," you ask, "What do you think is the best way to handle this?" You guide the conversation, ask the right questions, and eventually, someone suggests your exact idea or something close. Now it's their idea. And because of that, they'll be more excited, more invested, and more likely to make it work. Carnegie shares a story about Charles Schwab, a steel magnate. When one of his mill managers was struggling to boost production, Schwab didn't yell or give orders. Instead, he simply asked, "How do you think we can do better?" He let the manager propose solutions. As a result, the manager took pride in fixing the issue, and the improvement felt like a personal win. This principle works at home too. If you're a parent and you want your child to take responsibility for their chores, don't just assign tasks. Ask them how they'd organize their week. Let them come up with their own plan. Suddenly, it's not your rule, it's their structure. Or say you're trying to convince a friend to make healthier choices. You could bombard them with advice, but you'll get better results if you ask, "What do you think would help you feel more energetic?" Guide them with questions and let them arrive at the solution. The truth is, people don't like being told what to do, but they love feeling smart and capable. And when they believe they came up with the answer, they're more likely to stick with it. So next time you're trying to get buy-in from someone, step back. Ask questions, create space, and let the idea grow in their mind. Because if they think it's their idea, they'll run with it. Chapter 16, Principle 7 of Part 3. Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. Imagine trying to have a conversation where you're only thinking about what you want. It's like shouting through a wall and expecting someone on the other side to understand you. This chapter is all about empathy. Carnegie says that if you want to influence someone or build a real connection, you have to step into their shoes and see the world from their point of view. Let's take a real-life example. Say you're in a disagreement with a coworker. You think they're being difficult, but instead of pushing back, what if you pause and ask yourself, why might they feel this way? Maybe they're under pressure from their boss. Maybe they misunderstood your intent. Once you look at things from their angle, your frustration turns into understanding. And that changes everything. Carnegie tells the story of a father whose son didn't want to go to school. Instead of getting angry or lecturing him, the father asked, "If I were this boy, why would I not want to go?" He realized school might feel boring or stressful. So instead of forcing him, he tried to relate and make school sound more appealing. That approach worked better than any punishment. This principle can help in small everyday moments too. If a cashier is short with you, instead of reacting with irritation, think, maybe they're having a rough day. That shift in thinking doesn't just make you kinder, it makes you wiser. Or when you're trying to sell an idea or product, don't focus on why you love it. Think, what matters to this person? What problem are they trying to solve? When they feel understood, they're more likely to listen. Trying to see things from another person's view doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but it shows you respect them. And that respect is powerful. So the next time you're in a tough conversation, pause. Ask yourself, what is it like to be them right now? That one question can turn conflict into cooperation and resistance into respect. Chapter 17, Principle 8 of Part 3. Be sympathetic with the other person's ideas and desires. Have you ever been in an argument where someone just kept saying, "You're wrong"? It probably made you shut down or dig in deeper. That's exactly what Dale Carnegie warns against. This chapter is all about showing sympathy, not fake kindness, but a real effort to say, "I get it. I understand how you feel." Carnegie shares a story about a man who was denied a hotel room because he arrived early. Instead of yelling at the desk clerk, he said, "I completely understand. You must be following hotel policy." The clerk relaxed, and after a moment, she found him a room. By being sympathetic, he turned a no into a yes. Think about everyday situations. Maybe a friend cancels plans last minute. You could get upset. Or you could say, I totally understand. We all get overwhelmed sometimes. That one sentence can protect your friendship instead of hurting it. Or maybe your kid refuses to eat dinner. Instead of forcing them, you could say, I know you're not feeling hungry right now. That's okay. It makes them feel seen, not scolded. And often, when people feel heard, they become more open to compromise. Being sympathetic doesn't mean you agree with everything. It just means you acknowledge their emotions. You're saying, I hear you, and your feelings matter. In a world where people constantly feel misunderstood, sympathy is like a warm light in a cold room. It softens defenses, it opens doors, and it turns arguments into understanding. Next time someone is upset, don't fight back. Instead say, if I were in your place, I'd probably feel the same. You'll be amazed at how quickly things change. Chapter 18, Principle 9 of Part 3, Appeal to the Nobler Motives. Imagine you're trying to get someone to do something they don't want to do. You could bribe them, threaten them, or guilt trip them. But Dale Carnegie says, try something different. Appeal to their higher self, their better nature, their sense of honor, pride, or kindness. He tells a story about a department store that caught a young woman stealing. She had never done it before. She was terrified. Instead of calling the police, the manager spoke to her gently and said, "This isn't like you. You're better than this." She broke down and confessed, then promised to never do it again. No punishment, just an appeal to her nobler motives. And it worked. Let's bring this to real life. Maybe your coworker keeps showing up late. Instead of calling them lazy, say, "I know you care about this team and always want to do your best. We really rely on you." That subtle shift shows belief in their character instead of judgment. Or maybe your team won't help around the house. Try saying, "You've always been someone I could count on. You're responsible, and I trust you to handle this." Suddenly, they're not just doing chores. They're living up to the image you painted of them. The truth is, people want to feel important. We want to believe we are good, kind, honest, and fair. When you speak to that version of someone, they often rise to meet it. So the next time you're asking for help or trying to correct someone's behavior, don't criticize. Instead, speak to their higher self. Remind them of who they really are, and they'll often surprise you by living up to it. Chapter 19, Principle 10 of Part 3. Dramatize your ideas. Let me tell you a story about a salesman who couldn't make a sale. He had the best vacuum cleaner on the market. He explained all its features, how powerful it was, how long it would last. But no one cared. Then one day, he walked into a home, smiled, and without saying a word, dumped a bag of dirt right onto the customer's carpet. The homeowner gasped. Then the salesman said, "If this vacuum doesn't clean up every speck of this mess, I'll eat the dirt myself." He made the sale in seconds. That's what Dale Carnegie means when he says, dramatize your ideas. We live in a world filled with noise, distractions, and short attention spans. Just explaining your point isn't enough anymore. You have to make it real. Make it visual. Make it unforgettable. Let's bring that into your life. Maybe you're presenting at work. Instead of listing numbers on a slide, tell a story of a real customer who struggled until your product helped them. Show a photo. Play a sound. Use your hands, your voice, your energy. Or maybe you're trying to teach your kid a lesson about saving money. Don't just say, "Saving is important." Hand them a jar and say, "This is your future car or your dream trip. Let's fill it together." Suddenly, the idea is alive. People don't remember data. They remember drama. They remember moments that surprise them, move them, or make them laugh. So the next time you want to persuade someone, don't just talk about your idea. Show it. Paint a picture. Drop the dirt on the carpet and let your message speak for itself. Chapter 20, Principle 11 of Part 3. Throw down a challenge. Let me take you back to a time when Charles Schwab, one of the richest men in the early 1900s, walked into one of his steel mills. production was slow. Morale was lower. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten anyone. Instead, he pulled out a piece of chalk and wrote a number on the floor. 6. The workers asked, "What's that?" He smiled and said, "That's how many heats your team produced today." The next shift came in. When they saw the number, they erased it and wrote 7. By the end of the week, both shifts were pushing themselves to outperform the other. Not because they were forced, but because they were challenged. That's the power of this vital principle. Throw down a challenge. You see, people love to rise to a challenge. It awakens our competitive spirit, our pride, and our desire to improve. But here's the catch. The challenge has to feel like a game, not a punishment. It has to feel like an opportunity, not an order. Think about it in your own life. Are you managing a team? Instead of barking orders, set a goal, track progress publicly, and make it fun. People will surprise you. Trying to motivate a friend to join the gym? Challenge them to a 30-day workout streak together. Make it playful, not preachy. Even kids respond better when they're challenged rather than commanded. Instead of saying, "Clean your room," say, "Bet you can beat your record and clean it in 5 minutes." When we challenge others with respect, we're not pushing them away. We're pulling them forward. So whether you're a leader, a parent, a teacher, or just someone who wants to inspire, remember this. People don't want to be forced, but they love to win. Chapter 21. Begin with praise and honest appreciation. Imagine you're back in school and your teacher walks up to you. You just submitted an assignment that was missing a few things. But instead of pointing out what's wrong right away, they start by saying, "I really like the creativity in your opening paragraph. You've got a natural way with words." Suddenly, your shoulders drop. You feel seen, respected. Now, when they point out the mistakes, you're not defensive. You're open to listening. That's the magic of starting with praise and honest appreciation. Dale Carnegie believed that this simple shift in approach could transform how people respond to us. Most of us are used to being corrected or criticized without warning. But when someone begins by sincerely appreciating what we did right, it builds trust. It softens the blow of any feedback that follows. And it has to be sincere. People can sense fake compliments from a mile away. But when you notice something genuine and speak on it, even the toughest conversations become easier. In real life, whether you're giving feedback to a coworker, talking to your kids, or dealing with a team you're leading, this principle works. Praise first, then guide. People remember how you make them feel, and feeling appreciated makes them want to improve. Chapter 22. Call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. Let's say your friend shows up at your party wearing muddy shoes and steps onto the clean white carpet. Instead of yelling, "Hey, you're ruining the floor," you smile and say, "Looks like the garden left a souvenir on your shoes." That one sentence gets your point across, but without making them feel embarrassed or attacked. That's what Dale Carnegie means by calling attention to mistakes indirectly. People don't like being corrected, especially in public or when it feels like a personal attack. Our natural reaction is to defend ourselves, even when we know we're wrong. But if you point things out gently, through humor, a story, or even a question, people are more likely to reflect instead of react. It's like shining a light on the mistake without blinding the person who made it. Carnegie tells a story about Charles Schwab, a big-time business leader. When Schwab saw workers smoking under a no-smoking sign, he didn't scold them. He handed them cigars and said, "I'll appreciate it, boys, if you'll smoke these on the outside." The message landed, and nobody got angry or embarrassed. You can apply this in real life too. If your coworker misses a deadline, instead of saying, "You're late again," try, "Let me know if you need support next time so we can stay on track together." It's still feedback, but now it sounds like a team effort, not a complaint. People change faster when they don't feel judged. That's the power of speaking with respect, even when pointing out a mistake. Chapter 23. Talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. Imagine this. Your friend forgets to bring something important you asked for. Instead of saying, "You always forget things," you start with, "I've done the same thing before. One time I even left my passport at home on the way to the airport." Then you add, "Let's find a way to keep better reminders so this doesn't happen again." See what just happened there? You went from blaming to bonding. Dale Carnegie believed that before we point fingers, we should look in the mirror first. When you admit your own mistakes, you create a safe space. People don't feel like they're being attacked. They feel like they're being understood. This technique works wonders at work, at home, and even with kids. If an employee makes a mistake, a boss could say, "I remember when I did something similar early in my career. It was a learning moment. Let's talk about how we can avoid it next time." That simple shift from "you did wrong" to "I've been there too" changes the entire conversation. No one wants to feel stupid. No one wants to feel alone in their failure. But when you share your own mess-ups, you're saying, "Hey, you're not the only one. We all learn as we go." It doesn't make you look weak. It makes you relatable. And that opens the door for real improvement without resentment. Chapter 24. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Let's say your coworker forgot to submit a report. You could say, "Submit that report now." But what if instead you asked, "Hey, do you think we can get that report in before the deadline today?" Same goal. Completely different tone. Dale Carnegie teaches us that people respond better when they feel involved, not commanded. When you ask questions instead of barking orders, you're inviting cooperation instead of forcing obedience. It's the difference between a boss and a leader. Even at home, this works. Instead of saying, "Clean your room," try, "What's the plan for your room today?" That simple tweak shifts the mood. It shows trust. It shows respect. And it makes the other person feel like the decision is theirs. Carnegie knew that humans have a deep need for autonomy. When we feel like we're being ordered around, we naturally resist. But when we're asked for our input, we want to help. We want to contribute. It's not manipulation, it's motivation. So the next time you need something done, don't command. Ask. Guide the conversation with questions and let the other person take ownership. You'll be surprised how much more willing and effective they become. Chapter 25. Let the other person save face. Imagine this. Your teammate makes a mistake on a big presentation. You're frustrated, sure. But instead of calling them out in front of everyone, you take them aside, speak privately, and say something like, "Hey, I know that was tough, and we've all been there. How do you think we can fix it together?" That moment right there, where you choose compassion over criticism, is what Dale Carnegie means by letting the other person save face. People make mistakes. That's a fact. But how we respond to those mistakes can either destroy their confidence or build it back stronger. Think of a time when someone embarrassed you in public. Did it make you want to improve, or did it just make you feel small? Now flip that. When someone handles your mistake gently and respectfully, it sticks with you. Not because they ignored the problem, but because they preserved your dignity while solving it. This principle is powerful in any relationship, whether you're a manager, a parent, or just dealing with friends. If someone feels humiliated, they shut down. But if they feel respected, even when they're wrong, they stay open to growth. So next time someone messes up, pause. Ask yourself, how can I correct this while protecting their pride? Because when people feel safe, they're more likely to learn, improve, and stay loyal. Chapter 26. Praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Here's a secret about people. Everyone wants to feel seen, especially when they're trying. Think of a toddler learning to walk. You don't wait until they're running marathons before cheering them on. You celebrate every wobbly step. Why? Because that's how progress works. One small win at a time. Dale Carnegie says the same applies to adults. If someone is trying to improve, even just a little, acknowledge it. Say something like, "Hey, I noticed you spoke more confidently in that meeting today. Great job." That tiny bit of praise does more than you think. It motivates. It builds momentum. It makes the person want to keep going. It's easy to wait for the big win before giving recognition. But by then, it might be too late. People lose steam when their effort feels invisible. Let's say your coworker struggles with organization, but this week they finally labeled their folders. Instead of ignoring it because it's not perfect yet, you could say, "Nice setup on your files. Looks like things are coming together." Boom, encouragement. In daily life, this changes everything. Whether you're a boss, a teacher, or just a friend, your words can either push people forward or leave them stuck. So here's your challenge. Catch someone doing something slightly better than yesterday and let them know. It might be small to you, but it's big to them. Chapter 27. Give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. Here's something powerful. People often become who they believe they are. And guess what? You can help shape that belief. Dale Carnegie says, if you want someone to change for the better, give them a positive reputation to live up to. Let's say you're working with someone who's always late. Instead of saying, "You're always behind," try something like, "You've always been someone I could count on when it matters. That's what I respect about you." Now they'll want to live up to that image. You're not nagging them. You're guiding them. This works in everyday life too. Maybe your kid is struggling in school. Don't say, "You're lazy." Say, "You've always been curious and clever. That's one of your best qualities." You're planting a new identity in their mind, and they'll want to rise to it. Imagine a manager saying, "You've got a sharp eye for details. I trust your judgment." Even if that employee had never thought of themselves that way, now they'll try to match that version of themselves. It builds confidence and motivation. Why does this work? Because we all want to be consistent with how others see us. If someone believes in us, we don't want to let them down. So the next time you want someone to change, start by telling them who they can be, not who they used to be. Chapter 28. Use encouragement. Make the fault seem easy to correct. Have you ever tried to fix something, only to be told how badly you messed up? That kind of response rarely helps. It just makes us feel small or hopeless. But what if, instead, someone said, "Hey, this is actually an easy fix. You're almost there." You feel more confident, right? That's exactly what Dale Carnegie suggests in this principle. When someone makes a mistake, don't blow it out of proportion. Don't say, "You completely failed." Say something like, "You're really close. Just a small tweak and you'll get it." Let's say a friend keeps forgetting to lock the door. Instead of snapping, you say, "You've done it right so many times before. I know you'll get back on track." That one sentence does two things. It reminds them of their past success, and it makes the problem seem fixable. This works wonders with kids too. If a child gets a math problem wrong, saying, "You're bad at math," will crush their confidence. But saying, "You almost got it, just double check that last step," makes the mistake feel like a small bump, not a mountain. Even in the workplace, this makes a huge difference. A leader who encourages improvement instead of highlighting failure builds a team that isn't afraid to try again. The point here is simple. When you frame faults as small and fixable, people are more likely to take action. They feel empowered, not defeated. Chapter 29. Make the fault seem easy to correct. Let's say you're helping your little brother learn how to ride a bike. Every time he tries, he wobbles, panics, and falls. Now, you could say, "You're doing it wrong again." But that's not going to help him feel confident or capable. Instead, you smile and say, "You almost had it. Just keep your balance a little longer next time. It's easier than it looks. You'll get it." That simple change makes a huge difference. Why? Because people are more likely to try again when they believe success is just one step away. Dale Carnegie knew this. He said when someone makes a mistake, don't make it seem like a big, impossible thing. Instead, make it feel small, easy to fix, and within reach. This principle is powerful in everyday life. At work, if a teammate messes up a report, don't say, "This is a disaster." Try saying, "This is a quick fix. You just need to tweak a few numbers, and you're good." With kids, partners, or friends, the same rule applies. If someone feels like they failed, don't let them sink into that feeling. Lift them up with the belief that they can do better and that it's not hard to improve. When we make faults seem easy to correct, we build confidence, we encourage growth, and we help people move forward without fear. It's not just kind, it's smart. Chapter 30. Make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. This final principle ties everything together. Dale Carnegie tells us, if you want people to follow your lead, don't just push them, inspire them. Imagine this. You need a teammate to work late. You could say, "I need you to stay and finish this." Or you could say, "You're the only one I trust to handle this right. If you help me out, we can both come out looking good." Now it feels like a team effort. And more importantly, it feels like a win for them too. People are more willing to help when they feel appreciated, respected, and like they're gaining something. That something doesn't have to be money or reward. It could be recognition, trust, or a sense of purpose. Think about kids again. If you say, "Clean your room or else," you get resistance. But if you say, "You always make this place look great," think of how nice it'll feel when your room's clean and you can relax in it. The tone changes. You're inviting them to feel good about taking action. It's not about manipulation. It's about creating a win-win. You get what you need, and they feel good doing it. In life, we're always influencing. At work, at home, in friendships. When you can help others feel good about their choices, your influence becomes something people welcome, not resist. And that's the power of this entire book. So there you have it. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. One of the most timeless guides for anyone who wants to lead, connect, and communicate better. Remember, influence isn't about control. It's about connection. It's about understanding how people think, what they need, and helping them get there in a way that makes everyone stronger. If you enjoyed this deep dive, there's more waiting for you. Check out our Power Books playlist right here on Prose Pursuit. You can binge watch or just listen while driving, working out, or winding down for the night. Want fast, punchy takeaways instead? Head over to our 1-minute Power Book Shorts playlist for bite-sized lessons that stick. And hey, if you found value today, consider subscribing. Every week, we unpack a new powerful book that could change your mindset, your habits, and your life. Thanks for listening. See you in the next video.